Hillary Clinton has an announcement on whether she will or will not run for the presidency again, and we will talk about that. We will see if we will see Madam President for the first time in 2024 in an interview with CBS, and also some commentary that she has about the emails as well. In other news, Jackson Mayor is responding to jabs from the governor about the city's water crisis, while CNN comes out and tells us that it's all about racism, because it's always all about racism. China agrees to pay for Russian gas in rubles and yuan, as Gazprom and the Nord Stream 1 appear that they're going to be shut down indefinitely, at least until all the evil sanctions are lifted. So we'll go over some of that and where this goes. And Chile has rejected their progressive communist constitution coming up, or was supposed to be coming up. Now it's rejected, so it's not going to be coming up. And one of their new leaders has a very interesting message about it, invoking the name of a very, very famous anti-communist. It is going to be all of this and more Welcome back to the Backup Channel. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. With my microphone off, good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got a full load of news for the day again. I mean, we go in strains. We go from a day like yesterday where we had almost nothing to a day where the entire top of the screen is filled up again. So it always happens that way. Let's get the live chat up so I can see if anybody already caught the fact that I started talking while muted, because it happens like that sometimes. And we've got to get started. We've got to get to it. The thing with Chile, and I did have to relegate it out to the bottom of the show because there's just so much going on that is going to affect how our winter goes, by the way. Especially with the gas problem thing. That is one thing that we in the States do need to pay attention to, is the fact that Gazprom is going to be like that, and Nord Stream. That's going to be an important one for us as we go into it, unfortunately. So we've got to watch that. We've got to watch a bunch of other stuff over here on Contemporary. So let's get into it. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys are going over and checking out great programming, such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys, the No Gimmicks Podcast, PJ Patriot Show, and the new show he's got coming up with his co-host. So there's going to be that. Go check out Mr. Behavior, Tweets by Brit, KTZed. KTZed loving that true crime thing. It's like she's almost getting ready to go weekly on that, because I think she did 2 weeks in a row. So something to pay attention to as well. If you want to break from the modern politics and going back and analyzing things that have happened years ago, looking in at stuff like that. So definitely go and check that out. And let's get into the news of the day here. We start with finance. I got the live chat up. Arbolt throwing up those Twitch stickers up there. I gotta get the upper tiers up there just to see if you guys are willing to pay for the upper tiers to get some of the good ones. And of course, you can always go check out the Discord. I've got what I intend to put up there listed in there. Because, you know, if you're going to pay $10, $25 a month, you deserve to have something spicy. Maybe even something that crosses the lines of Twitch TOS. We'll see. We'll see if they just get taken down, or if I have to go back out to another channel and have to work my way back up to affiliate status to go and get emotes again. But let's get into it. Let's get started. Let's talk about the news for the morning here, starting with the Dow. And the Dow peaked itself up above the previous close yesterday, but brought itself back down, closing about 100 points lower yesterday to 31,145.30. And looking into the futures are kind of mixed right now. We're not sure where they're going to go. If they're going to go jump back up or if they're going to come back down. So we'll watch that and we'll talk a bit about that. It looks like the Dow is up slightly, but everything else is down slightly. So we will see what happens with that and where that goes. Looking at Bitcoin. So if you have Bitcoin as an asset, as a retirement fund or anything else, you're probably looking at your 401k, your Roth IRA or something else like that, and feeling a little bit of the burn right now, because Bitcoin, for those of you who are interested in doing that, or listen to the former presidential candidate, who happened to be a college professor. I know how certain people in our chat enjoy that, but if you listen to her, you looked in at the fact that you saw that, oh, well, we have to sell everything that we have, everything out of our Roth IRA, everything out of our 401k, and put it all into Bitcoin, because that's the only way we can truly be independent of the government. Note, this is not official financial advice. This is me trolling a former presidential candidate. But Bitcoin right now is on sale. It is on sale right now for $18,715.10 US dollars per Bitcoin. And of course, you can always go in and get percentages of Bitcoin. I started with $5 in Bitcoin. I don't have that much anymore, unfortunately. Well, maybe fortunately, who knows? But yeah, I do have to set up the Bitcoin wallet because I want to see if you guys are interested in donating in Bitcoin, because if it's going to be this volatile, if it's going to fall off like that, I'll hold your Bitcoin for you. I'll sit and hold on to that stuff forever. I'd even be willing, if I wasn't saving up to buy a house right now, to even throw maybe a $20 bill into Bitcoin and grab it while it's on sale and see if it'll go up there. But hey, I like grabbing some of this stuff, and if it's too volatile for you, I will definitely hold on to your Bitcoin for you. No problem with doing that, but that's what we see for that. Bringing this out to the 5-day, we see where the big tank was, and then where the second and third big tanks were. But it's growing its way back out of the third big tank. Not very well, but somewhat. But if it's something you're interested in, it's something I'm always interested in following, because it is the best indicator of the short term of the economy, being one of the most liquefiable assets that we have out there. You don't have to go put a for sale sign in your truck and try to sell that. You don't have to search for a new house to move into and try to sell your house to downsize. You don't have to go through your stockbroker and wait for your stockbroker to do things. You get to the Coinbase app, you click a couple buttons, and cool, I have cash. I can go buy gas now. So it's always, to me, seems like the best indicator of where everything is going to go in the short term. So we'll continue to watch that and see what happens with that. Looking in at your gas is holding somewhat steady in the Madison area. Again, the 318s and 316s that we've been seeing for the past week are no longer on the top of the gas buddy list, but we have not moved above 329 yet. So we'll continue to watch that and see what happens. 327 at the Costco in Middleton, 327 at the Citgo on Commercial Ave in Madison. So that's what we see coming out of the Madison area. So your gas prices are still holding steady. Surprisingly, after a high-demand holiday weekend, they're still holding steady. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures await Apple iPhone 14 debut. Spoiler alert, it's going to look almost exactly like the previous iPhone. It might have another camera, but it's going to be rounded edges and ice cream colors, just like every other one. From Scott Latonin, Dow futures were a little changed Wednesday morning as Apple stock rose ahead of its far-out iPhone 14 launch event. Key earnings reporters on Wednesday include Academy Sports, Outdoors, and Tesla rival NIO. Academy was set to report shortly, while NIO stock skidded nearly 5% in early trade after reporting a wider-than-expected second-quarter loss and weak revenue guidance. EV leader Tesla fell 0.5% on Wednesday. Among the Dow Jones Industrials, tech titans Apple and Microsoft were both barely higher ahead of today's stock market open. In the market's current volatility, Arista Networks, Costco, Restaurant Brands, and Ulta Beauty, as well as Dow Jones stock Chevron, are among the top issues to buy and watch. Keep in mind the market's increased volatility is a good reason for investors to be a bit more defensive. Costco is an IBD leaderboard stock in the wake of a recent breakout, while Apple and Restaurant Brands were featured in this week's Stocks Near Buy Zone column. On the Dow today, before the open Wednesday, Dow tilted higher versus fair value, while the S&P futures were roughly flat. NASDAQ futures edged lower in morning trade. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. And the ETFs are telling us a similar story. The NASDAQ 100 Tracker, Invesco QQQ Trust, and the SPDR S&P 500 both were little changed in early trade. The 10-year yield ticked lower to 3.33 early Wednesday, easing after the Tuesday jump. On Tuesday, the 10-year yield notched its highest closing level since June 15th, without the GDP to back it up. U.S. oil prices inched higher Wednesday after briefly hitting new recent lows. West Texas Intermediate futures traded just below $87 a barrel. So that's what we see coming out of that. Let's grab one quick from CNBC, and we'll go talk about the wonderful Hillary and the announcement that she had to make. From CNBC, Dow closes lower more than 100 points in post-Labor Day session as interest rates pop. From Carmen Reinecke and Samantha Subin. U.S. stocks slumped on Tuesday in a volatile trading session as investors weighed what strong economic data and rising rates means for Federal Reserve's aggressive tightening campaign. The Dow fell 173.14, or about 0.5%, to close at 31,145.30, but was off the lows of the day, boosted by defensive stocks such as Johnson & Johnson and Coca-Cola. Oh yeah, that vaccine money's still rolling in. The S&P slipped 0.41 to 3908.19. The Nasdaq Composite slid 0.74 to 11,544.91, notching its 7th day of losses, its longest since 2016. At the same time, bond yields surged, adding to the rout in stocks. The yield on the U.S. 10-year jumped as much as 1.62% point to 3.353 at one point in the day. Yields move inversely to prices. The moves came after the August ISM data Tuesday morning was stronger than expected, coming in at 56.9 versus expectations of 55.5. The report follows Friday's job release, which also beat Wall Street's expectations, showing a more solid U.S. economy than anticipated. Again, I ask, where? Where is there a more solid U.S. economy than anticipated? Dude, I am still looking at the fact that I got a 5% raise this past year, and since the last time I got a raise before that, my dollars were 17.1% less than what it was. We're not picking up the slack, and I'm looking at going and grabbing a second job just to try to get everything done and settled. And by the way, again, the donation links are always there if you guys want to come back and help out, because we're not in a sustainable position, and we are looking at people going and grabbing second jobs because, you know, the money is suddenly not there for a raise, but we still have to go back out and make up the bills that we were losing out on before. Both reports came ahead of Federal Reserve's September meeting, where they are expected to raise interest rates again. Better than expected economic data may mean that the central bank continues to act aggressively in hiking interest rates. On Friday, the major averages closed out their third negative week in a row. The Nasdaq Composite posted its first 6-day losing streak since 2019, ending the session 1.3% lower, while the Dow erased a 370-point gain on Friday to close about 1.1% lower. The S&P shed 1.1% to its lowest close since July, which means that we're probably getting back into that bear market territory for the S&P. Bulls, hoping for a rebound, will be doing so during a shortened Labor Day week that historically has paralleled September and its track record of underperformance. Losses have been slightly less frequent over the past 3 decades, but volatility has been higher, said Chris Larkin, Managing Director of Trading for E-Trade from Morgan Stanley. So, a few things to watch, a few things to look at. Some stocks are going to be on sale right now. That's one thing to pay attention to as well. And if you are looking at bolstering up your 401k, there's not official financial advice for this, but there may be a place for you in a market like this. So don't count it completely out. But we will see what happens with that, where this goes, and what we do with that. Let's get into the main news of the day, starting with the Hill. I was teasing you. Early in the show, I was saying Hillary had to make an announcement, and with her ego, possibly believing that she could be running again. And while the headline says what it says, I don't believe it, because I know how much of an ego Hillary Clinton has on her. But to take the headline at its face value, Hillary Clinton says she will never run for president again. From Chloe Fulmar. Former Secretary of State and Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton on Tuesday said she will not run for the president ever again. No, Clinton said when asked by CBS News' anchor Norah O'Donnell if she would ever run for the president again. But I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we have a president who respects our democracy. Which, anytime you see that phrase, you can just change that out to our hegemony. And the rule of law, and upholds our institutions. I got some hot sauce in my purse. You want some of that, Nora? Clinton said former President Trump would not fit that category, and that he should be soundly defeated if he runs again. It should start in the Republican Party and get back to all those people who would bend the knee if we called them racist. All those people who would panic in fear if we called them racist. They're the ones who we need to get them into office first. Clinton said, and it's ironic that I made that troll there because the next line is, grow a backbone, stand up to this guy, but crumble whenever we call you a bad name. Let's listen to what she had to say.
What's your take?
All right, let's actually back this out a little bit. Kill the background music, and let's have a listen.
What's your takeaway about the January 6th committee and Donald Trump's actions?
I would not be honest if I didn't say I think there was a seditious conspiracy against the government of the United States, and that's a crime.
Led by Donald Trump.
Led by Donald Trump, encouraged by Donald Trump. You know, I was the Secretary of State. I spent, many days on airplanes flying from place to place, encouraging people to have a real democracy. And one of the hallmarks of a real democracy is the peaceful transfer of power. Was I happy when I beat Donald Trump by nearly 3 million votes but lost the Electoral College? No, I was not happy. Did I even for a nanosecond think I'm going to claim victory and try to get the Democrats to refuse to certify the election? No.
Which is funny because you spent almost the entirety of the 4-year Donald Trump presidency screaming about Russian collusion, Russians stealing the election, checking the election, and of course we saw the video, which I can bring back up because I happen to know where there's a group chat somewhere where it's very readily accessible, thank you, Mr. Fanning, of what actually happened while we were talking about this. Let me get this up here. So this possibly may not be you, Mrs. Clinton, but these are people who know you and appreciate you very much and wanted you to be president. Let's listen to that again from yesterday.
I have an objection because 10 of the 29 electoral votes cast by Florida were cast by electors not lawfully certified.
I object to the votes from the state of Wisconsin, which should not be legally certified.
No debate.
Mr. President, I object to the certificate from the state of Georgia on the grounds that the electoral votes were not...
There's no debate.
And I object to the certificate from the state of North Carolina.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object.
I object to the certificate from the state of Alabama. The electors were not lawfully certified.
Is it signed by a senator?
Not as of yet, Mr. President.
In that case, the objection cannot be entertained. The objection cannot be entertained. Debate is not in order.
Even with the
There is
malfunction,
no
87
debate in
voting
order. Is
machines
it
at the
signed by a
African
senator?
American
There is no
Rights Act
debate.
and
There is no
concerning
debate
hacking by
in
the
the
Russian
joint
government.
session. There is no debate. There is no debate.
16
There
to
is no
1.
debate.
And the massive
Please come to order. The
my
objection
signature on it
cannot be
seeking a
received.
senator, but the Russian
Section 18, Title 3 of the United States Code prohibits debate in the joint session.
I do not wish to debate. I wish to ask, is there one United States senator who will join me in this letter
There
of
is no
objection?
debate. There is no debate.
One.
Boy, by the current definition, that sure sounds like an insurrection, doesn't it? And that sure sounds like an attempt to change the electoral count. Does that not sound like that? Yes, you do have 100% gas over there, Randy. It's called premium. Although we have no ethanol added, regular unleaded, not premium, down here as well, depending on the station that you go to. And for one of the rare instances where I am looking over at the chat and addressing it while on the show, the sticker, the gift that we have over there from Blind Fear, I have no idea who that is, but I always laugh when I see that sticker. That is hilarious. All right. Let's keep going on the hill here. Trump, who defeated Clinton in the 2016 presidential election, has been teasing another run for president in 2024, and polls show he has a good chance of clinching the Republican nomination. Well, it's not just polls, it's the fact that with the incumbency advantage, a lot, especially of the red-leaning states, would probably just suspend their primaries and say, okay, well, we're just going to give our delegates to this presidential candidate because there's no point in us going up and spending all this money to have a primary because we know who's going to win already. Just look at the polls. Let's see. Clinton has said that she would endorse President Biden if he runs for re-election the same year, which he has repeatedly said that he plans to do, saying that he would be the I would be the person likely to win. Man, come on. Joe Biden beat in a huge landslide victory in the popular vote Donald Trump. I think that says a lot. Honk honk. 81 million votes. 10 scoops of ice cream, most popular president in history, more votes than even Barack Obama. Clinton said in a conversation with NBC News anchor Yamiche Alcindor in late June. Now, do I believe that Hillary Clinton does not plan to run in 2024 again? Yes and no. Now, Hillary does have an ego on her. That's something that we all know. That's not me throwing shade. That's something that's well known. You have to have a certain level of ego in and of itself to even consider running for the presidency in the first place. That's a given. But as far as Hillary goes, it's one of the things where she's said, well, if I have to do my duty and become the most powerful person in the country, in the most powerful country in the world, I guess I'll go do that. And really, honestly, who else do they have to run? Mayor Pete, who is going to go down in flames for the gas crisis and everything else that goes along with this administration. Kamala Harris, who got less than 1% of the primary vote and is still somehow even less popular now than she was when she was running for the presidency. Who else do they have? Andrew Yang? Oh no, he's off on the Forward Party. And most of them hate him by this point. Man, I don't know who else they would go run. Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, I think she would be roundly defeated. Gavin Newsom would be roundly defeated outside of their own districts. They poll and run very well in their own districts, but they can't win in a national race. Who else is there? Tony Evers? That I could actually see. But he would also get roundly defeated. So, I don't know who they could run. Because this man here is not going to make it. This man here doesn't know where he is half the time. And people are starting to catch on to this, on top of the fact that, as mentioned, and as I said, from here until November, keep spinning that speech, because whoever's pulling the strings and whoever wrote that speech does want you, as the Trump supporter, on the boxcar. Some more Hillary news for you from Fox. Hillary Clinton blasted for astonishingly false Twitter thread claiming she had 0 classified emails. And this is coming from Fox. Never mind. I was going to say this is coming from The Hill, but I'm like, oh, wait, no, we just read The Hill. This is Fox. From Lindsay Cornick. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton faced backlash on Tuesday for claiming investigations proved she had 0 classified emails on her private server. The former First Lady took to Twitter in a lengthy thread to call out comparisons that have been made between her past email scandal and the ongoing FBI investigation into former President Trump for allegedly keeping classified documents. The tweet: I can't believe we're still talking about this, but my emails. As Trump's problems continue to mount, the right is trying to make this about me again. No, well, they are. You're correct on that, but they shouldn't be. There's even a Clinton standard. The fact is I had 0 emails that were classified, and the investigation found that that was actually a lie. She insisted. Comey admitted he was wrong after he claimed I had classified emails. Trump's own State Department, under 2 different secretaries, found that I had no classified emails. That's right, 0, Clinton argued. By contrast, Trump has hundreds of documents clearly marked classified, and the investigation just started. Show me the documents. That is the biggest thing for me, too, because these people keep saying classified documents, classified documents. We know that they were classified. We know that he was selling away our troop deployments. Okay. Because you know so well, that indicates to me that you've seen them. Because you wouldn't just believe the mainstream media has blown smoke up your butt. You wouldn't just believe the mainstream media on its face value, right? You would actually question everything, right? No. Look for introspection from people like this. Well, no, we can't see them because they're top secret. Oh. So the evidence can never be admitted to the American people. The evidence can never be put in front of a jury, and yet you want to make an indictment off of this? The evidence can't even be put in front of a grand jury. And you want to make an indictment off of this? And in all fairness, for Hillary, it was the exact same thing. As much as we joke about this person had damning evidence on the Clintons, this person had information that could lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton every time somebody kills themselves at this point, or dies unexpectedly. Every time we see something like that, we make the joke. But as far as, and there are many other things to go after the Clintons on, number one, they're never going to face any justice for anything. But number two, even if they were, it's not going to be from the classified emails, because A, they destroyed all evidence of it, but B, even if there was evidence, it's something, again, classified, compartmentalized, top secret, that will never be able to be presented to a grand jury or a jury of peers, ever. You cannot prosecute on something like this under the way that our justice system works, because you can't present the evidence to a jury. When it came to, like, Reality Winner and, what was her name? Chelsea, the one, I can't think of her last name. Manning. Chelsea Manning. They actually leaked it back out, so it was at that point de facto declassified. It was in the public record and the public knowledge, so that could be presented to a jury. But these things here, because they are still out there and just only having been seen by people with the top clearance, stuff like that can't be presented to a jury. Several Twitter users attacked this thread as astonishingly false for ignoring a 2018 DOJ Inspector General's report that revealed 81 email chains containing approximately 193 individual emails were classified from confidential to top secret levels at the time. Literally a lie, conservative Twitter personality Noam Bloom wrote, including a video of the then FBI Director James Comey making the admission. Now, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't bring Hillary up to this. And I've been trying to avoid as much as possible talking about the Mar-a-Lago raid because, again, we should be focusing on the economy, on the jobs reports, on the inflation, and on the fact that the leader of the free world clenched his fist in the air and said, all the MAGA Republicans are cockroaches and need to be exterminated, or at least stopped very short to that. But what's important about this is the parallels. And I talked about this when I talked about the election honk-honk defeat in 2020 as well. It was important for them, for optics, to get this to be a certain thing. And it's the same thing to go along with the National Archives and the classified documents. Comey, Trump supporters made a big deal about the classified documents back in 2016, which means that in order for the mainstream narrative to work and to try to, again, make it so this guy can't run for the presidency again, they have to make this all about the same thing, about the documents, about classified information, because that's what he said about Hillary. They had to make sure when they honk did nothing bad to the election, because it was totally free and fair. Nothing bad happened. 81 million votes, 10 scoops of ice cream. Honk, most popular president in history. They had to make sure that in a video game, in a simulation, they brought it out deliberately to 306 to 232. It's a symbolic number, because that was the result of the 2016 election. So they had to be able to say that not only that it was a win, but a win in a landslide. They could have honked it if they were to honk it, even though we know that nothing bad happened and most popular president in history. But if they were to honk it, they could have honked it to 539. They could have honked it to be a win by one electoral vote, but they had to get it to a quote landslide, to not only be a defeat but a humiliating defeat. So, that's what we have going off of that. From Kaleda Raymond, Hillary Clinton laughs when asked about Trump's classified documents, which I believe this is on Kimmel. Yeah, or Felon, rather. So we can watch the video off of that. Let's back that up a little bit and let's listen.
Easy is it to walk out with boxes of classified documents?
It's also, wait, Jimmy, it's the plural that kills me, right? You're like, not just one box or one document. Boxes and thousands of documents.
Does he know what he's doing? Does he? What would you do with that? I mean, is it?
Yeah, that's about how she feels about that. And hey, she didn't even take the documents. She just happened to hold on to those. Going through an email chain in a position where she wasn't there to declassify. Alright, what else do we have? Some Ducey, speaking of questions about the election integrity, and Hillary Clinton. Ducey and our friend Token Diversity hire. Ducey, you tweeted in 2016 that Trump stole the election. I knew this was coming. Let's listen.
The new attention on the MAGA Republicans. You tweeted in 2016
I knew this
Trump
was coming.
stole an election.
I was waiting, Peter, when you were going to ask me that question.
Well, great. Here we go. You tweeted Trump stole an election. You tweeted Brian Kemp stole an election. If denying election results is extreme now, why wasn't
So
it then?
let's be really clear. That comparison that you made is just ridiculous. I have been. Well, you're asking me a question. Let me answer it.
And you said it was ridiculous.
I was talking specifically at that time of what was happening with voting rights and what was in danger of voting rights. That's what I was speaking to at the time.
The new attention on the MAGA Republicans.
No, it wasn't. You got caught, and again, I knew this was coming. That comparison you made is ridiculous, because of course, it's just fine to question the election when somebody comes in who might hazard abortion rights or child sacrifice rights, but, you know, with now, you can't question the election when it's somebody that we like. These people seem to keep forgetting that the internet is forever. Kathy Griffin, getting in on this, talking about 2022. If you don't want a civil war, vote Democrats in November. If you do want a civil war, vote Republican. With Tim Young coming out replying to this saying, so Kathy Griffin is now threatening civil war on behalf of Democrats if Republicans win. Got it. I don't know. That's kind of based a little bit here. Basically, if we don't get our way, we're going to start a war. But don't worry, that's not an insurrection. It's only an insurrection when a bunch of unarmed idiots walk into the Capitol and take pictures during a vote count. That's an insurrection. But calling for a civil war directly on Twitter, that's not an insurrection. From the Daily Wire, Kathy Griffin blasted for telling people they'll get a civil war unless they vote Democrat. Actress and comedian Kathy Griffin took some serious blowback on Tuesday after she claimed that the only way to prevent civil war would be to vote Democrat in future elections. Griffin shared her thoughts in a tweet claiming that only people who were in favor of such a conflict could vote Republican in November's midterm elections. And we read the tweet already. Griffin's most recent claim to fame was a photo in which she held up a prop made to look like a severed head of former President Trump. That photo cost me my life on the D-list, or cost the My Life on the D-list actress her annual gig hosting CNN's New Year's Eve broadcast alongside longtime New York anchor Anderson Cooper. Critics appeared to be just as impressed with Griffin's assertion of imminent civil war as they were with her staged Trump photo, and they responded en masse via Twitter. Let's see. So you're threatening civil war from the left if you don't get your way. I thought Biden just said we were the violent ones. Mrs. Massacre tweeted. If the choice is being crushed by a nasty totalitarian deviance or civil war, well, David Riboy left his conclusion to the imagination. Kind of sounds like the first one. So you're threatening war if election doesn't go your way and Democrats do not win, came from Irish American 27. We know the threat is not idle. We've been living through your civil war for 6 years now. We're used to it. And this one here, terrorism. Noun, the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in pursuit of political aims. At Mostly Peaceful tweeted. So, yeah, she got roundly rejected for this. And as I've normally said, and this usually gets me some blowback from lefties especially, because they're trying to paint everybody that doesn't agree with them into the corner of being a Trump worshiper. And I always say, especially when they try to do that, my big one here is, if MAGA worshipers, MAGA people, and progressive government worshipers want to go out and spend 6 months killing each other in the streets, more power to them. As long as they stay out of rifle range of my lawn while they do that, more power to them. Enjoy, have fun. To the victor go the spoils. Stay away from my lawn. I'll be sitting out there gardening with a rifle in my hand. If one of you gets too close. But if you guys want to go at it with each other, have fun. Either side winning in that case would be equally detrimental to me. So just get it out of your system. Here's one from the completely objective Raw Story via MSN News. A majority of Americans will have an election conspiracy theorist on their ballot in November. Analysts. From Matthew Chapman. And that just means an election where someone on the ballot isn't either a government-worshipping progressive Democrat or a monoparty Republican. From Matt Chapman. On Tuesday, the elections analysts at 538 reported a stark statistic. A majority of Americans will have at least one person on their ballot who denies or questions the results of the 2020 presidential election when they go to vote in November, which is funny because in 2020 and in 2018, the majority of us had a person on the ballot who questioned the integrity of the 2016 election. But, 538 didn't have a problem with that, it seemed. From the Carolinas to California, Montana to Florida, election denialism has spread across the country, said the report. Candidates who support former President Trump's false claims that the 2020 election was stolen will appear on the ballot in nearly every state this fall. 538 drew on news reports, debate footage, campaign materials, and social media, and reached out to every single Republican nominee for the House, Senate, Governor, Secretary of State, and Attorney General to determine their position on the 2020 election. Because that's the most important thing. This is fear porn. You better go vote Democrat, because otherwise you might be voting for somebody who questioned the election. Just like what was coming from the other side in 2018 and 2020. But hey, we don't talk about that. From the Daily Wire. Former military leaders warn of politicized civil-military environment following Biden's speech. Going back to the speech, which is what we should be talking about from here to eternity. There should be no conversation about the documents, about the classified documents. There should be no conversation about Mar-a-Lago or election denialism or anything else. Economy, inflation, wages, gas prices, and this speech should be the only things you are talking about on Twitter. Those 5. You want them again? Want them again? You want to write them down? Economy, inflation, wages, gas prices, and this speech. From Tim Pierce. Over a dozen former defense secretaries and Joint Chiefs chairmen signed a letter of warning of a challenging civil-military environment days after President Biden delivered a polarizing political speech with 2 Marines in the backdrop. The open letter was published Tuesday on the national security website War on the Rocks. 8 former defense secretaries and 5 former chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff signed on to the letter. We are in an exceptionally challenging civil-military environment. Many of the factors that shape civil-military relations have undergone extreme strain in recent years, the letter claims, citing the winding down of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan last year was defined by chaos and bloodshed as 13 U.S. service members died in a terror attack in the war's final days. The letter also cites strains from the pandemic and economic dislocations. It said military professionals have experienced an extremely adverse environment characterized by the divisiveness of effective polarization that culminated in the January 6, 2021 selfie fest at the U.S. Capitol. The letter outlines 16 core principles and best practices to be observed by military and civilian leaders to protect the integrity of the military from politicization and controversy. The letter comes 5 days after Biden stirred such a controversy by featuring 2 U.S. Marines in the backdrop of a political speech in which he declared Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. While plenty of critics blasted Biden's language, many others took note of the conspicuous placement of the Marines in the background. Presidents typically refrain from using U.S. military as props when making political speeches, and the presence of the Marines gave Biden's speech an ominous undertone. The message to other military personnel, particularly other Marines, is that support for the president's opponents is considered a threat to the constitutional republic, wrote Jonathan Turley, a law professor at the George Washington University Law School. The military leader's open letter appeared to address such a controversy as the U.S. military appearing to be part of a political event. It also noted that military rules expressly forbid certain political activities by service members. And yes, and I've mentioned that both of these Marines that were in the background should be in contact with their CO yesterday, filing a grievance for being used for such a speech. In fact, I honestly question right now if they were given advance record of the speech before they decided if they could volunteer to be a part of this. There are significant limits on the public role of military personnel in partisan politics, as outlined in long-standing Defense Department policy and regulations. Members of the military accept limits on public expression of their private views, limits that would be unconstitutional if imposed on other citizens. Military and civilian leaders must be diligent about keeping military separate from partisan political activity, the letter states. And yeah. Now, I don't actually know how it goes in the officer corps, because most everybody that I knew that was military, and of course I was not, something I regret now later in life, but I knew a lot of enlisted people throughout my life, and I know that while you're in the E class, while you're on enlisted, once you've signed the contract, you are government property. There was a kid, Nate, that used to hang out with my roommates. He grew up with my roommate when I lived out in Mass, and he was the first one who pointed it out to me, and several other people confirmed it, that, I mean, if you're enlisted and you get a sunburn, you can be fined for destruction of government property. That is how seriously they take what you are as a military member and why you don't have quite the same level of constitutional rights, especially in uniform. So, it's something to watch for. And again, this speech should be at the top of everybody's list on what to discuss when we're talking about current politics over on Twitter or Facebook or anything else. They're trying to pull the message back to the documents, the classified documents. I don't think I have anything about them on today's stack. Do I? Maybe one. Maybe one, but that's way towards the tail end. Let's talk about energy and resources. And we're going to start with our friends over at NPR. In Jackson, Mississippi, volunteers work hard to bring water to residents who need help. This is from Stefan Bisaha. And remember, NPR needs our money, comrade, so hit that donate button. I know I didn't make the speech last time we read from NPR, but they need our money, comrade, so hit that donate button. Make sure that you know that volunteers are working hard to bring water because Mississippi is that evil red state. And they don't care about anybody, and it's racist. So make sure you hit that donate button because we can't tell you how racist a red state is unless you donate all of our money, comrade, to us. NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is they have to say. The short-term solution to the water problem in Jackson, Mississippi has been free drive-through bottled water pickup sites. But it's an issue for people who have no way to get to the water, like April Williams. Her car has been broken down for a week, and it'll likely be another before the part she needs can come in on Thursday. She has down to a half case of bottled water in an apartment with 3 adults and 2 young kids. Well, that seems excessive. The main thing we need, it's a struggle to get right now, Williams said. You'd be surprised to know how much you need water to survive. Not really, that's usually pretty obvious. Jackson residents without transportation or the gas money to spend, waiting, in some cases hours, have felt abandoned during the city's water crisis. Local nonprofits have been delivering water directly to some residents, but they're still working on scaling up to dealing with a problem that stretches across the city. City agencies like the fire department have been passing along the names of low-income neighborhoods where transportation options are sparse to the Salvation Army. That's how the A Group found Williams about a mile west of Jackson State University and gave her several cases. Water pressure has now been mostly stored in Jackson, but a boil water notice remains across the city. Williams kept her tub filled with water in case she needed to flush the toilet. Dorothy Young sipped from one of her last 3 palm-sized water bottles when the Salvation Army arrived. She's 85 years old and can't get around without a walker or wheelchair. The neighbor who saw Salvation Army's truck came by, asked for some cases to drop at Young's store. Cleaning up the dishes piled up in her sink was her priority after getting clean water. I worry about it because you can't get your dishes clean, Young said. So, with this being said, and I know that I mocked roundly NPR for their communist take, their progressive take and everything, but the message that they're actually sending out here is the right message. The government is failing in a place like this, and private charity is stepping up, which is what needs to happen. The government does fail in a lot of things, and once again, it's a matter of, your taxes are going to be raised to go do things like the student loan bailout, or you're going to get inflated out of the market to do things like the student loan bailout, or the infrastructure package, or the green energy package, whatever the hell it was called. That's all going to get taxed off of you, and of course, the person who's handling the money and the tax situation is going to be taking a little bit off the top for himself. It's just going to happen that way. But this is the right way to do this. I do feel a little bad for mocking NPR for never printing reality at this point, because this is the right way to do this. And if you have the opportunity, if you're in the Mississippi area, grab a case of water, get it out to a low-income neighborhood. Don't put it through the government, don't put it through the fire department. Bring it out there yourself. Hand it out. Say, hey guys, have some water. You need it. The government failed you. Stop voting for them. Let's see, what else do we have from Jackson? Jackson mayor responds to jabs from governor about city's water problem. From Ross Adams. Looks like we got some video of this as well. Let's read a little bit of this and we'll scroll back up and grab the video. Jackson Mayor Chakwi Antar Lumumba responded Tuesday to criticism from the governor about how the city has handled the ongoing water problems that led to a state takeover of the O.B. Curtis water plant. The residents don't really care about how we feel about each other when there's no water coming out of the tap, Lumumba said. The mayor held a news conference to provide an update from the city's water emergency, also to respond to statements Governor Tate Reeves made on Monday morning. We are currently producing stable pressure, but if a challenge arises with the plant operations Tuesday, it will likely impact customers, Lumumba said. Investigative sampling began Tuesday when city officials said will give an indication of water quality. The next steps will be taking water samples from 120 sites around Jackson. It will take 2 consecutive days of clear samples before the Mississippi State Department of Health will lift the citywide boil order.
And state
So let's
bottled
listen.
water distributions still underway here and across the city because while the water pressure has returned, it is still not safe to drink. As for the mayor and the governor, today the mayor brought a long list of documents to dispute what he says the governor's claims that the city doesn't have a plan.
We've also given them a list of the water distribution system priorities. That means the pipes that are in each precinct across the city.
Armed with a paper trail of documents, Mayor Lumumba fired back at Governor Reeves one day after the governor said the city didn't have a plan to fix the O.B. Curtis water treatment plant long before the system failed last week.
Unfortunately, we've never received a real plan from Jackson on how to improve their water system so that the state could consider funding it. I know Congressman Thompson said the federal government is in a similar situation.
After a winter storm in February 2021 knocked O.B. Curtis offline and left the entire city with no water for a month, the mayor says he sent a letter to the governor asking for $47 million in state and federal funding. The legislature eventually gave the city only $3 million.
I think that the thing that we should leave this discussion with is a resolve to work together, right? Is a resolve that the people of Jackson are worthy of our collaboration.
Tuesday, the mayor said investigative testing continued at the plant as they prepare to take water samples across the city to be sent to the state health department. But for now, the boil water alert remains in effect.
Now, when it comes to fixing Jackson's water system problems.
So again, I mean, if you're in the area, maybe toss a case of water out to people. But let's keep going. Another one from Shapiro's website. CNN suggests systemic racism from Republicans is to blame for Mississippi water crisis. Wait, I've heard this one before. Isn't this what we had in Flint as well? It wasn't the fact that there was a problem with the management and the budget in the city, or, as was mentioned in before, no plan to do things. No, it was systemic racism from Republicans that led to a Democrat-run city having water problems. From Ben Ziesloft. CNN has repeatedly suggested that the water crisis in Jackson is the fault of systemic and environmental racism. Multiple pumps at the O.B. Curtis water treatment plant failed last week after a severe storm caused the Pearl River to flood, prompting low water pressure and risk of bacterial infection, according to a press release from the Mississippi Department of Health. Federal and state officials, including Joe Biden, Governor Reeves, and Jackson Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba, have issued emergency declarations as many residents of the state capital are unable to access potable water. Some have pointed to a general economic decline in Jackson as a factor behind the crisis, since the city's population declined from roughly 174,000 in 2010 to 154,000 in 2020, according to data from the Census Bureau. Others have noted political turmoil, as Jackson has seen 8 mayors since 1997, including 2 who died in office. In its coverage of the crisis, however, CNN continues to float systemic racism as a viable explanation. Advocates have previously pointed to systemic and environmental racism as among the causes of Jackson's ongoing water issues and lack of resources to address them, CNN reported on August 31st, noting that the Mississippi legislature is a majority white, and while the population of Jackson is overwhelmingly black. In another article published on September 3rd, CNN said that white flight is responsible for the city's population decline, while the state's Republican-controlled legislature, which is predominantly white, has thwarted efforts to upgrade the black metropolis's decrepit water system. The article noted that Reeves refused to allocate $47 million for repairs and has asked the city to start collecting their water bill payments before they start going and asking everyone else to pony up more money after a previous water crisis. In an op-ed published on August 31st, W. Ralph Eubanks said that the white power structure in Mississippi was responsible for the crises. How could a state ignore the needs of the residents of its capital city and allow things to deteriorate to this point? The answer, as I see it, is simple. Racism, he said. Jackson is a black majority city, and Mississippi is governed by a white Republican supermajority that refuses to invest in Jackson because of who lives there and who governs it. For evidence, Eubanks referred to remarks from the deceased Senator James Kimball Vardaman, who called the African Americans in Mississippi lazy, lying, lustful animals. He neglected to mention, however, that Vardaman was born months after the Civil War began and died in 1930. Though Eubanks said the messaging from the current leadership of Mississippi is not much different from the late lawmaker's comments, he did not cite any specific examples, most likely because there were none. So, there you go. CNN says it's all racism. A little bit of a transition here from Politico. Jackson floods to California bakes. From Ariana Skibel. This week, the nation is getting a jarring reminder that extreme weather can imperil the infrastructure that provides our basic needs. Unless it's in Texas, because if it's in Texas, then it's just Governor Abbott failing. But if it's California or Jackson, majority Democrat-run places, then, at that point, it's not leadership. It's the inclement weather and climate change. In California, a record-shattering heat wave is pushing the power grid to its limit. In Jackson, more than 150,000 people are still suffering from the impacts of torrential rainfall that left most of the city without running water. Climate change is worsening such disasters, because of course it is, threatening basic necessities many take for granted. Heat waves are fueling increasing temperatures, warmer oceans, and drier soils, and when they hit, the grid struggles to keep up. The link between a warming planet and flooding is more complex, but scientists say it's clear that as sea levels rise, flooding will increasingly threaten vulnerable infrastructure. I love how one paragraph to the next, we're hearing about warmer oceans and drier soils, and then in the very next paragraph, we're hearing about record-breaking flooding, which would wet the soils. Flash floods, which are unexpected and particularly destructive, will also get shorter but bigger, as warmer temperatures cause evaporation that increases moisture in the atmosphere. I do believe climate change is real. As far as whether or not it's man-made, I think the jury is still out on that. I don't necessarily think that it is. But we will see where that goes. Let's move on and talk about California. From Yahoo Finance via Reuters. Did I have that backwards? Is this from Reuters via Yahoo Finance? I don't know. Swelter in California urges conservationist power demand nears record. No author given. California's grid operator rejected record-breaking power demand on Tuesday and issued an emergency call for consumers and businesses to conserve energy for the 7th consecutive day to avoid blackouts and mid-soaring temperatures. The California Independent Systems Operator urged residents to conserve power in the late afternoon and early evening as the sun sets and the state's vast supply of solar-generated electricity recedes. Late in the afternoon, the grid operator raised the emergency alert level to tap into programs that offer financial incentives to reduce energy use and seek more electricity from the market. It said that it would likely raise the alert level again, a step closer to implementing rotating outages. California's week-long run of record-breaking temperatures is projected to continue this week, as highs reaching the 110s on interior parts of the state, according to the National Weather Service. In Sacramento, the state's capital, the temperature reached 115 on Tuesday afternoon, its highest ever. I know this has been a very long heat wave, and we're not asking you to do even more, Elliot Manzer, CEO of ISO, said in a video recording posted on Twitter. But please stick with us, and don't use any more power than is absolutely necessary. Yeah, no, don't charge your electric car. The ISO forecast demand would peak at 51,698 megawatts on Tuesday, topping the current record of 50,270 megawatts in 06 before sliding to 49,868 megawatts on Wednesday. Late on Tuesday, solar power was supplying about a fifth of the state's demand. And I mean, this is not normally a problem, except for the fact that, as we know, we don't have the proper storage procedures in place to make sure that we can still have solar power like this at night. And the grid is just not ready to handle this level of electricity. And you want to throw a massive amount of extra energy onto this by switching everyone over to electric cars by force rather than by voluntarism. And people aren't buying them normally. Like, they're buying them voluntarily. I don't know. I think California's got some problems. Well, they've got a lot of problems. And it's such a shame because, from what I understand, it's a really beautiful state. And if you get down in LA, the temperature stays moderate and average most of the time, unless you get these big heat waves like this. And it's a great place for Hollywood. It's a great place for actors to go in and pretend that they're actually going to go and act and not just run an extended production of the Cheesecake Factory. But that's what we have for that. But that's not the only energy problems that we have here. And this, by the way, is going to affect you here. Might have to go and archive this. I do. Very professional. Didn't archive this one. But it has already been archived. So we're good. From Reuters. Gazprom offline Nord Stream compressor station now deemed hazardous. No author given. Russian gas giant Gazprom said on Monday it received a formal warning from Russian regulators that the idled Portovaya compressor station, which is supposed to push gas towards Germany through Nord Stream 1, no longer complied with safety requirements. Yeah, who could have seen that coming? Who could have seen that coming? Gazprom had said on Friday it had detected a leak of engine oil in the only turbine that was still working at Portovaya and would shut off natural gas supply until it was repaired. On Monday, it cited Siemens Energy, which has done maintenance on Nord Stream 1 turbines, as saying that the causes of oil leakage can only be eliminated by a specialized repair company. Its statement said that Portovaya was now a hazardous production facility and could no longer operate legally. Siemens Energy said on Saturday it had not been commissioned to carry out the work and that the leak reported by Gazprom would not usually affect the operation of a turbine and could be sealed on site. It also said other turbines were available for use at the Portovaya station. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov on Monday reiterated Moscow's position that problems with the supply of gas from Russia were entirely the result of Western sanctions. Europe has accused Russia of weaponizing energy supplies in retaliation for Western sanctions imposed on Moscow over its military intervention in the Ukraine. Oh yes, they've been accused of this, but surprise, surprise, according to the Insider, that's exactly what's happening. Russia says it will not resume natural gas flows via a key pipeline to Europe until the collective West lifts sanctions against the country. From Wheeling Tan. The Kremlin has issued its sharpest comments about the cutting off of Russian natural gas flow via Europe via the key Nord Stream 1 pipeline on Monday, saying supplies would not resume until the collective West lifts sanctions against Moscow. Problems with gas supply arose because of sanctions imposed on our country by Western states, including Germany and Britain. The Kremlin spokesperson told Dmitry Peskov said during a conference call. Reuters reported on Monday. We see incessant attempts to shift responsibility and blame onto us. We categorically reject this and insist collective West, in this case EU, Canada, UK, is to blame for a fact. That situation has reached point where it is now, Peskov added per Reuters. Peskov added the Nord Stream 1 would definitely resume its supply to Europe if sanctions are eased, according to the outlet. So, shocked. Europe has accused Russia of weaponizing energy supplies in retaliation for Western sanctions imposed on Moscow over its military intervention in Ukraine. Chaser. We will resume gas flow if you lift sanctions. The complete halt at Nord Stream 1 sent the benchmark Dutch natural gas futures surging by as much as 36% in just one day on Monday. And again, who could have seen that coming? Oh, you want to sanction us for what we're doing in Ukraine? Well, you are completely dependent on us for your natural gas to keep your entire continent warm once it gets cold. Yeah, how's that working out for you right now? Russia supplies about 40% of Europe's natural gas, most of which is transported by a pipeline. I think it's a little bit higher than that, actually. In 2021, Russia exported about 155 billion cubic meters of the fuel to Europe, more than a third of which came from the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, according to Reuters. After Nord Stream 1's shutdown, just two networks carrying natural gas to Europe remain. One flows through the Ukraine, although supply has been slow due to the war there, and the Turk Stream pipeline that runs from Russia to Turkey, which is operating normally. So, this is going to get interesting, and once again, I note to you on this, because many of you guys use natural gas for this. The U.S., you know as well as I do, that the U.S. is going to go start bottling up natural gas and sending it over. They're going to go and start sending it to Europe, because we have to be humanitarian, which is going to put a strain on our supply. And your electric bill is going to go up as well. Just so you know. Although I do believe it's going to be much more feasible to send propane than natural gas, there is going to be some natural gas in there as well. Because propane is usually the one that's transported, not natural gas. Natural gas typically comes from pipeline, although it can be bottled. But the bottling process for propane is much easier. So, this is definitely something to go pay attention to. Propane and propane accessories. CNBC, with a little bit of a follow-up on this, we'll just kind of glance over this one. Russia has cut off gas supplies to Europe indefinitely. Here's what you need to know from Sam Meredith. Europe has been thrown into its biggest energy crisis in decades, with natural gas supplies from Russia becoming volatile and unpredictable even before the invasion of Ukraine began. Now those supplies have come to a complete halt. We went over this. Coming directly from the Kremlin, such comments represent the clearest indication yet that Russia is seeking to pressure Europe into lift the economic measures brought on to punish Russia over its unprovoked invasion of the Ukraine in order for the taps to be turned back on ahead of the winter. Which is what I told you was going to happen all the way back when this first started off. I'm actually a little surprised it took them this long. However, while flows were due to resume after 3 days, Gazprom on Friday cited an oil leak for the indefinite shutdown in the pipeline. The shock announcement came hot on the heels of a joint statement from the G7 economic powers backing a proposal to put a price capping mechanism on Russian oil. And here we are, winter is coming. European policymakers are currently racing to secure gas supplies in underground facilities in order to have enough fuel to keep homes warm during the colder months. Which some of that's going to be coming from you. Energy analysts say Russia's latest move to suspend gas flows via Europe's major supply route could exacerbate what was already likely to be an extremely challenging winter period. So, there you go. And you know we're going to be selling some of that over there as well. And a blooper from Karine Jean-Pierre. This isn't a big deal. It's just a little bit funny. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this because we still have a bunch of stuff to go over. And it's a minute to 9. Karine Jean-Pierre says Russia is weaponizing energy by shutting down Nord Stream 1. Nord Stream 1 is probably where she got that hideous top.
You've heard us say this, that what we see Russia's doing, and we've been very clear about this, is that they're using energy, they're weaponizing energy, and it's choosing to one of the things that has been out there, the shut down the pipeline of Nord Stream 1. You've heard us say this, that what we see Russia's doing, and we've been very clear about this, is that they're using energy, they're weaponizing energy, and it's choosing to one of the things that has been out there, the shut down the pipeline of Nord Stream 1. You've heard us say this.
Yeah, people slip all the time. It's still a little bit funny, but people do slip all the time. Just very briefly on this, Karine Jean-Pierre mocked after calling Nord Stream 1 pipeline Nordstrom. Is that on sale? White House Press Secretary, token diversity hire, received social media scorn on Tuesday after she accidentally called Russia's Nord Stream 1 pipeline Nordstrom, as in the department store. The slip of the tongue came as President Biden's chief spokeswoman accused Russia of fueling an energy crisis in Europe by shutting down the pipeline which supplies natural gas to large swaths of the continent. That's all we're going to do on this. It's funny enough to bring up, but not a big enough deal because they sound so similar to go back and say that, oh, she should be removed from her post for this. No, it was an accident. They happen all the time. Al Jazeera. To figure out where Russia's getting their money from now that they're not selling to the EU. China agrees to pay for Russian gas in rubles and yuan, so not even on the euro or the oil dollar. No author given. Russia's energy giant, Gazprom, has said it's signed an agreement with China to start payments for gas supplies to China in yuan and rubles instead of US dollars in a sign of warming relations between Beijing and Moscow, which is under Western sanctions. Maybe I should send this out to my friend Seawall, who assures me that Russia and China could never get along because they hate each other. Let's not accidentally just go out here and put this in the Porch Boys server and tag Seawall in it. Let's maybe not do that. Oops. It was an accident. I didn't mean to go do that. The new payment mechanism is mutually beneficial, timely, reliable, and practical solution. Gazprom CEO Alexei Miller was quoted in saying in a statement following a video conferencing meeting with the head of China's oil group CNPC, Dai Wulang. Miller said, added, it will simplify calculations and become an excellent example for other companies. Miller informed his Chinese counterpart that the status of work for the project of gas supplies by the Eastern Route, the Power of Siberia gas pipeline which connects Russia and Chinese gas networks, the Gazprom statement said. Gazprom did not provide further details on the scheme or say when payments would be switched from dollars into rubles and yuan. Who cares when it's going to happen? It's going to cut the U.S. energy dollar out of things, which I'm not entirely surprised either of those countries want to do, with Taiwan looming in the foreground and Ukraine going on as we speak. And the fact that, again, they share a big border. They have common enemies. And Russia really needs to go sell that gas somewhere in order to get paid, since they can't send it out to Europe anymore. Some other interesting note coming from the economy from oilprice.com. 60% of UK manufacturers could close as energy prices soar. Which again means another strain on the supply chain and the markets. And what happens when supply chains and markets get strained? Coming to oilprice.com via Zero Hedge. As many as 6 in 10 British manufacturing businesses are at risk of closure, according to a recent survey, as soaring energy bills and the wider cost of living crisis has owners feeling the squeeze. Make UK, a manufacturing lobby organization in the UK, announced on Saturday that 42% of manufacturers have seen their electricity bills rise by 100% in the past 12 months, and 32% have also seen their gas bills double. The rise in prices has seen 13% of manufacturers already reduce their hours of operation, and 12% have been forced to make job cuts as a direct result of increased energy bills. And when you have the job cut, there are fewer people out there who can afford to go buy the manufactured product, which means that you're expending the same amount of energy at double the price to make even less of the product, leading to another job cut, and stagflation begins. The majority of businesses warned that if bills continue to increase this year and rise by over 50% as expected, closures and redundancies will become inevitable. The lobby group issued on Monday a proposed 100-day plan for the incoming Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who was announced on Monday. It includes a call for an emergency budget, a demand to commission the Migration Advisory Committee to review the shortage occupation list, which outlines key job roles in high demand in the UK to allow businesses to recruit from overseas more easily, and an overhaul of apprenticeship levy to ensure British people are among the most productive and highly skilled workers in the world. And none of that is going to matter a lick if nobody can afford to keep a business open because of rising energy prices. Not one iota of that is going to matter at all if nobody can afford to keep their business open. No. I'm going to point something out here, because there are some things to look at with this. Going back to the 40s and 50s, when we had the highest corporate tax rate and we were still making it, we were still leading the world in the best economy. Because we're not in the same situation, but in a similar situation right now. And a good, business-minded, business-led president, and I'm not saying the Donald by any stretch of the imagination, but a good president with a mind for business and economy could really take advantage of this if he did it right. If he looked at this, operated with this, and did it properly, we could soar back to global dominance in the wake of this right now. In the 40s and 50s, after World War II, well, actually, really honestly, after a continued World War for 30 years, because, there were 2 world wars, but one of them kind of just led right into the other. If we're going to be completely honest about this. And the reason that I bring this up is, of course, because at the time, all of Europe had been bombed twice over. with strategic forces going out to make sure that the production facilities were at the top of the list of places to get hit with the bombs. It's important. Because with that, when we look at something like that, when we see how things like that work and operate, the only place that was spared in the developed world at the time was the US. We're entirely on another continent, also Mexico and Canada as well, but we're entirely on another continent. We were spared from many of the bombings, and nobody was dumb enough to go try to bring a bomb over here. So our manufacturing was there and flourishing, while Europe was still trying to rebuild themselves. Now, we've gone for 80 years, and Europe has fully rebuilt themselves, and a lot of our manufacturing has gone over there because of tax prices. But now, as we're starting to look, and I look at this, and I hate the fact that I have to come back out and say this, because this is going to be hard on the people that live in Europe, but they are still going to need manufactured goods, and if they can't afford to stay open, we can, and we have natural gas and oil reserves underneath our country. The right business-minded president could not only triple the oil manufacturing payload and the natural gas manufacturing payload over here, giving us the ability, as long as we can hit it by ship and get a shipping route secured, giving us the ability to supply Europe with all the natural gas and propane that they would need, but also all the manufactured goods. Do you think China, if they're going to be allying with Russia, really wants to go back and sell to Europe right now? There's an opportunity here for U.S. hegemony and U.S. supremacy in the world stage again, if somebody takes advantage of it. Unfortunately, the vegetable that's in the White House is not the person to do it. Coming back stateside, from the Daily Mail. U.S. faces biggest strike ever as 350,000 UPS workers demand better conditions, even though its package delivery drivers already earn up to $95,000 a year. Wow, really? I've seen the guy that drops off packages where I work, and he doesn't look like he's a six-figure guy. And if he is, by the way, I am in the wrong industry. But it's union also, so do keep that in mind. And I will not work for one of those. From Alyssa Guzman for DailyMail.com. The U.S. faces the biggest strike ever as 350,000 UPS workers are set to protest over better conditions, even though the delivery drivers already earn upwards of $95,000 a year. UPS's contract is set to expire on July 31st, 2023, and 350,000 of its 534,000 employees are expected to go on strike to demand better conditions. Those represented by the Teamsters Labor Union are demanding air conditioning in the back of their trucks. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but that is putting a strain on your fuel and your resources as well, because that's a big open cavernous space. After several workers have been injured or died due to extreme heat, as well as better pay packages and benefits. If the workers go on strike, it'll be the first time the company has since 1997, when employees demanded full-time positions and the union wanted to maintain control over the pension fund. Labor experts suspect that the unionized workers will go on strike sometime during the spring when the contract is being negotiated and will affect the whole country. Yeah, it will, and it will affect the whole country hard. Because this is one of the leading companies that brings packages around the nation. This is one of the big ones. So, something we'll pay attention to, definitely, off of this, but this could wind up hurting if it's not addressed properly. From Observer, why a groundbreaking California fast food worker bill could transform U.S. labor organizing. From Courtney Vinapal, A bill passed by California lawmakers this week aims to boost labor protections in the fast food industry, historically one of the most difficult sectors to organize. The legislation, which was approved on August 29th, could raise the industry minimum wage to as much as $22 an hour, up from the current 15 hourly minimum. Perhaps more significantly, it would also create a process for setting fast food wage standards across the state, reintroducing to the U.S. European-style sectoral bargaining where wages are negotiated across multiple employers. The bill would establish a 10-person council tasked with setting standards on wages, hours, and working conditions for fast food chain employees throughout the state. Though it's not yet clear whether California Governor Gavin Newsom will sign the bill into law, labor advocates say the legislation could change the game for workers who aren't heavily unionized. I think the creation of this fast food sectoral council is one of the most important policy changes in decades for workers, says David Madland, a senior fellow at the Progressive Think Tank Center for American Progress and author of Reunion. It really has the potential to transform the entire fast food industry and create a model for others. Translation: even if you don't live in California, the price of your Big Mac is going up because that's all priced among all the different places across the country. And if they've got to pay $60,000 a year to a kid who's working on the register with pimples on his face and braces in his mouth, that's going to affect the prices everywhere. And also probably drive us further into inflation as the prices catch up around the rest of the country. Some Biden news. Blue-collar workers from Biden's home state torch his student loan debt plan. A heavy burden on all of us. From Chris Enlow. Blue-collar workers from Biden's home state are not happy over his plan to absolve millions of Americans from their obligation to repay student loan debt. Biden announced last month that he will forgive $10,000 of student loan debt for every borrower who earns less than $125,000 per year. Income-qualified borrowers who are awarded Pell Grants will receive $20,000 in debt forgiveness. Excuse me. Workers at the Donsko Incorporated Iron Foundry in central Pennsylvania told Fox News they believe Biden's plan is unfair and benefits Americans who don't really need the help. A lot of those families are rich. They have the money to pay it off, so they get a break. And then they get to sit on their couch. Their kids are stuck with a degree they can't even use, worker Francisco Hernandez says. The thing about it is, the rich aren't going to pay for this, we are. It's just going to put a heavy burden on all of us. It's not going to affect the people that are here, the people that are actually out doing all the work. He's going to help the people in the bigger cities because that's what he wants, Supervisor Jim Davis said. I think it's a bad idea. Donsko is always hiring people. These college kids can always come here on their time off work and pay their debt back, worker Tony Bell said. They signed a contract, they should pay for it. Why should I pay for someone else's college? Kevin Wasilewski questioned. I don't think a plumber should be paying for a doctor's free medical school. A lot of that's very true. A lot of it's very true. However, the unfortunate part of this is this was a midterm gimmick. This was a dare by the Biden admin, and it's not right. But the only political way forward on this is to let this go through. Unfortunately. And lamely. Let this go through. Let this be affected. And see where the inflation goes with this. Because right now this was a dare to get the Supreme Court to intervene and block this before the midterms. So now we can go back and run on, hey man, I'm Joe Biden and I need your help to get me a Senate. And I can pack the Supreme Court and add 4 justices to offset the evil orange man justices. That's exactly what this was. And you know it, and I know it, and everybody else in the world knows it. This was a dare for the midterms. Apparently there's a cricket somewhere in here. More career news here from the New York Post. Sex workers say Wells Fargo shut down their bank accounts, destroying our livelihoods. Paste. Wells Fargo has inexplicably terminated the bank accounts of several high-profile individuals in the sex industry, one of whom took to Twitter and slammed the bank for the move. I don't bounce checks. I've never done anything bad with my bank account. I don't have fraud alerts or do chargebacks. Alana Evans, an adult performer who is also the president of the Adult Performance Artists Guild, said in a tearful Twitter video that was posted on Friday. Evans read a letter that she received from Wells Fargo informing her that after a 30-year banking relationship, her account would be discontinued. A bank that I've done business with for 30 years decided that I'm not worthy of a relationship with them, she said, adding, "How am I supposed to pay my bills? How am I supposed to get paid?" Well, if you're an adult performer and also the president of the guild, you probably make enough money that Chase will probably take you on, or a local bank or something. The Post has sought comments from Wells Fargo. In a letter received by Evans, the bank stated it performs ongoing reviews of its account relationships in connection with the bank's responsibilities to manage risks in its banking operations. Wells Fargo made the decision to terminate Evans' account as a result of its review, as per the bank's letter. Let's listen.
I got a letter today. From Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo performs ongoing reviews of its account relationships in connection with the bank's responsibilities to manage risks in its banking operations. We reviewed your account relationship, and as a result of this review, we will be closing your above referenced accounts. The accounts are expected to close by October 13th, 2022, or you may contact the bank to initiate closure at an earlier date. The decision is final. The bank reserves the right to close the subject accounts sooner than then if circumstances arrive that warrant an earlier closing. Also, be aware that some circumstances may delay the closure of your accounts. But there's no reason why. I've been with Wells Fargo since 1993. I remember getting my Wells Fargo account. I was young. I had a baby. I had a job. It was the beginning of my life. And they've been alongside me for 30 years. And now, when I'm probably the most financially sound that I've ever been in my entire life. My kids are grown. I'm about to be divorced. I'm a single woman. And I'm being told that they're going to close my account because somehow, miraculously, I'm a risk now. I don't bounce checks. I've never done anything bad with my bank account. I don't have fraud alerts. I don't do chargebacks. And a bank that I've done business with for 30 years decided that I'm not worthy. That I'm not worthy of a relationship with them after 30 years. And when I called, at first, the worker on the phone was a little surprised.
All right, that's all we're going to do on that one here. But, I mean, Ron says it best, too. So there could be some government pressure. As far as Wells Fargo goes, and I used to bank with them. I've since terminated my relationship with them and gone somewhere else. But one of the things that I carried into my decision to terminate, well, first off, when I moved and when I stopped working in Madison, there's no Wells Fargo Bank branch anywhere where I am. So it's a matter of if I did need to go into the bank and either get some quarters to go and do laundry or get some cash or cash a check that I had gotten to go put in the account, it's an hour drive for me to go to the bank. That's part of the reason. But I was already debating it. In fact, even before I started my channel, my ex-girlfriend had pointed out, I don't understand how you're still banking with a bank like that when they're having so many problems and everything else. And why do we have that video coming out of the New York Post in the corner there? And that was behind my head, so you couldn't see it. But yeah, they were showing a vibrator. I don't know why. Anyway, going back to what I was saying with that, part of the reason, especially when I started making YouTube comment, was the idea that, just like this, Wells Fargo is actually very picky on who they allow to have banking relationships with them. And I knew that at one point, if they found out that I was speaking outside the message and they got pressure from mainstream media or government or anybody else who is opposed to the message that I'm putting out here, the first thing they would be doing would be starting to come out and finding a reason to eliminate me from their roles without warning, and probably with me bouncing some checks somewhere along the way. And that's just not something I was comfortable doing. Staying with them. I mean, we can sit here and we can say base as much as we want, but realistically looking into this, this is a person who has plenty of money, who could probably get plenty of money out to Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo stands to make a lot of money off a person like that. But they choose not to do so based on a single external characteristic. That's not a good business practice. All right. One that came. Ooh, we're up on the clock. I'm actually gonna hold this one off till tomorrow. This is one that Mr. Fanning brought us here. I'm gonna hold this one till tomorrow because there was another one that I wanted to make sure that I got to today. We're not gonna do the Eliza Fletcher stuff today. I know that. Let's see. So there are a couple more that I want to do before we do something I'm thankful for and head out of here. One is coming out of Chile. Chile's Boric shakes up cabinet after constitutional loss. From Daniel Politi, the Associated Press. Chile's president, Gabriel Boric, shook up the cabinet Tuesday in an effort to relaunch his government less than 48 hours after he was dealt a resounding blow when citizens overwhelmingly rejected a new progressive constitution he had championed. Boric, 36, changed leadership of 5 ministries in what marked the first cabinet shakeup since he became Chile's youngest president in March, and has since suffered a precipitous plunge in his approval ratings. I am changing the cabinet, thinking about our country, Boric said, qualifying the shakeup as painful but necessary. This is, maybe, I don't think I have to hide it, one of the most politically difficult moments that I've had to face, he added. The shakeup does not come as a surprise. Boric, who has been a big proponent of adopting proposed constitution, had previewed there would be changes coming to his administration during a televised address Sunday night, shortly after the results showed Chileans had voted overwhelmingly against the proposed constitution. The opposition had also said they were expecting changes to Boric's team, with some conservative leaders refusing to meet with the president to begin talking about the new constitutional process until there was a change in his government. While the press waited for Boric to unveil his new ministers, siren could be heard and the smell of tear gas was evident from nearby protests as hundreds of students marched through the streets in Chile's capital of Santiago. There were isolated clashes between demonstrators downtown with his law enforcement that tried to disperse protesters in what marked the first important street demonstration since the Constitution lost in Sunday's plebiscite. Which I had to look that word up, by the way. The direct vote of all the members of an electorate on an important public question such as change in the Constitution. I didn't know that word prior to this morning. Izquierdo Sánchez, the former interior minister, was the biggest name to leave the cabinet, but probably the most expected as her tenure had been marked by controversy. Carolina Toja is taking her place. Because, as much of the news has been talking about, and I had shied away from, Chile was given a progressive, almost communist constitution. And they roundly and soundly rejected it completely. They don't want anything to do with any of that. And probably one of the biggest messages off of this, after the defeat of the new constitution in Chile, Colombian President Gustavo Petro tweeted, well, those of you who read Spanish can tell, but I'll read the tweet and then the quote tweet that brought it with this. CNN in Español says, Plebiscito Chile, el rechazo a la nueva constitución lidera tras el 48% del conteo de votos, which translates to, and I did the Google Translate this morning because I'm sure that only Miss McLeod is the only one who understood what I just said. Chilean plebiscite, the rejection of the new constitution, leads after 48% of the vote count. And with that, Gustavo Petro tweets out, Revivio Pinochet. Translated to, Pinochet is alive again. And helicopter rides for all. This is actually going to be the thing that I'm thankful for today. The thing that restores my faith in humanity. So we'll move this up to the end. But let's hear one from our friend over in the NIH. The chief medical advisor to President Biden telling us that you are going to need to go and get another injection, and we're going to try to make sure it's required because it lines his pockets.
It is becoming increasingly clear that looking forward with the COVID-19 pandemic, in the absence of a dramatically different variant, we likely are moving towards a path with a vaccination cadence similar to that of the annual influenza vaccine, with annual updated COVID-19 shots matched to the currently circulating strains for most of the population. It is becoming...
That's right. Are you ready to get your yearly booster? Just like your flu shot? From Local 12, Fauci, it's increasingly clear the U.S. is moving towards the annual COVID-19 shot. From CBS/CBS NewsPath. The White House Pinko Pox response team has held a briefing on Tuesday as the U.S. prepares to enter its third winter with the Pinko Pox. During the briefing, the team spoke about the updated coronavirus booster shots, the increase in number of daily deaths in the U.S., and preparing for the months ahead, where there's usually an uptick in cases. During his presentation, Dr. Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, predicted that it's becoming increasingly clear the U.S. is moving towards an annual Pinko Pox shot, for most similar to how the flu shot is distributed. He has also said that some vulnerable groups, like seniors and immunocompromised patients, may continue to need more frequent vaccination against the Pinko Pox. During the briefing, the team strongly encouraged getting the bivalent Pinko Pox booster jab. They said studies showed it can induce higher antibody response against all variants, more than the original mRNA vaccines. In addition, the bivalent vaccines induced higher levels of antibodies in individuals who recovered from previous Pinko Pox infection. Every year, you guys. Are you ready? Are you ready for every year? All right. And with that, we're going to head out of here. I'm going to save this one for tomorrow just because that one's going to be fun. Jennifer Lawrence. But with that, we close out with this one from The Blaze. Something that restores my faith in humanity. In fact. So, reading from The Blaze today. Liberal attends Trump rally, expects aggression. Instead, he's treated with incredible kindness and even gets invited to a Bible study. from Dave Urbanski. Self-described liberal Samuel Donner on Tuesday told Fox and Friends he attended a recent rally for former President Trump to see if he could make friends and establish common ground. Growing up in LA, you think that these events are going to be, very aggressive, Donner told host Steve Doocy. Instead, the smiling Donner discovered the opposite was the case. Donner's TikTok page is titled 100 New Friends, and that was the California native's aim when he attended a recent Trump rally in Tennessee, to see if he could get rally attendees to talk to him and make 100 new friends, Fox News said. It turned out to be way easier than expected, as Donner told the cable network. I was absolutely baffled that people wanted to talk and would actually be friends with me. In one clip, Donner posted many videos of his interactions at the rally. On his TikTok page, he reveals, "Going in, I was expecting aggression, but I actually experienced a lot of kindness." One supporter even invited Donner to join her Bible study, which he and his friends indeed attended, and where they experienced incredible kindness. Donner explained to Doocy that he wanted to test the question, "Can I go into what I thought was the most hostile environment I could?" And we have video of this as well. "I was so nervous going in, I had a pit in my stomach the whole time," he added to the Fox and Friends host, but there was no cause for his fear as Trump supporter after Trump supporter welcomed him with open arms and said yes to being friends. Fox News noted that Donner said in one clip that his interactions at the rally changed how he views America and challenged his past conceptions about Trump supporters. "We're just trying to find common ground between humans," Donner told the cable news network. "I think at the end of the day, humans have a lot more common ground than we're led to believe. If you can start those conversations, you can actually understand where that common ground is." And I want to talk about this for just a moment here, because this is something that's realistic, for the most part, on the Trump supporting right. They do have an animosity towards government officials, FBI, people like that, people who are actively going out to try to get them silenced. And I think if they were to recognize somebody who wasn't hiding behind an anime PFP on Twitter or something, they might have some of the hostility as well. Somebody who's come out, like if they saw JoJo from Jers, they might be a bit hostile to her. But for the most part, if you come in and you say, I'm a liberal, I'm a Democrat, in person, and you're not starting out to be completely combative and putting them on the defensive. I mean, this guy's coming out and saying, "Hey, I just want to be friends. Let's see if we can find common ground." They're going to run out and do that. And that is one of the differences between the right and the left, and something that I've noticed, especially between the right and the left. Ideologically, if you aren't on board with even the most extreme measures of the left, a lot of them will come out and ostracize you. They'll say that you're not worthy to be anything. And, I saw this even back when I was on that, when, evil Republican, my Republican parents are so bad. We've seen a lot of this in media. We've seen a lot of this in common ground. But, when you go to the Trump rally, and I've been to one recently. It was my first one there. Everyone wants to come up and talk. People want to be friends. They're the people out there that want to give the business out to people, even if it is incredibly jacked up and expensive. A hot dog stand at the Trump rally that we went to, $50 for 2 meals. I thought that was a little bit excessive, but of course you gotta have your building. In order to have the food truck, you've got to have a building there, plus you've got to get out there. You're on a premium captive audience. So I understand why they do something like that, and the line was 20 minutes long at least to get into and go grab something to eat. But even when it comes to social media, the people on Twitter who freaked out about Elon Musk buying Twitter because they might let all the banned people back on there, the people who are out there trying to get other people banned from Twitter because they don't want to hear what it is they have to say because it's dangerous election misinformation or rhetoric or something like that. They don't want to have the conversation. The people on the right go into these places that are abjectly, what's the word I'm looking for? Not animously, because that word doesn't make sense. Objectively standoffish to people who don't agree with them. We'll go with that. they'll still go into these situations because they want to have the conversation. They don't want to live in the echo chamber. Our friends to the left want to go live in the echo chamber. They want only to hear ideas that that cement and confirm their already deep-seated biases. I said this with Duty to Warn yesterday after I quote tweeted them. You know, hey, we're hearing from all kinds of lawyers that we follow on Twitter, saying that Trump is definitely going to jail this time. And I put on their translation. Our echo chamber has, again, confirmed our deep-seated biases. Whereas, like with me, I will, even though I didn't ask to be exposed to JoJo from Jers, or John Cooper, or Dash Dabrowski, or even Joe Walsh at this point, these people are continually brought into my feed where I have to see them and interact with them. And I'll reach out and I'll try to get the conversation started, and these people won't, but those people are promoted, and I'm willing to listen and have a conversation with anybody, even somebody up on the left. Whereas people like that are not willing to have a conversation with somebody who might disagree with them, who might challenge their worldview. And it's really telling, because that worldview falls apart under the smallest bit of pushback, and that's part of the reason they try to stay in their echo chamber, because it's the only way they can hold their deep-seated biases. But let's listen to a little bit of what this kid has to say.
Welcome back. Our next guest is a liberal who is going viral for reaching across the aisle to make new friends at a Trump rally.
I'm a liberal, and I went to a Trump rally to see if there was common ground. Going in, I was expecting aggression, but I actually experienced a lot of kindness.
Do you want to be friends? Of course. Loved everybody.
Sure. I'm gonna get a hug.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes! That last clip was Holly, and she invited me to a woman's Bible study, so Malik and I went.
This is Samuel, one of Holly's friends.
And again, we experienced incredible kindness.
They're a fun group of people.
TikTok user 100 new friends, aka Samuel Donner, joins us right now from LA. Samuel, good morning to you.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Great to meet you. We saw this. We thought we got to talk to this guy. So the idea was you wanted to go to what you, as a liberal, thought would be a hostile environment, a Trump event, and how'd that turn out?
It actually was much more friendly than I was expecting. I mean, as like growing up in LA, you think that these events are going to be like very aggressive, and also I was kind of just saying that I was a liberal, but I was absolutely like baffled that people wanted to talk and would actually be friends with me when I asked, "Want to be friends?" And they said yes.
That's right. So ultimately, I think what you found is that it is easy to find common ground with people you do not agree with politically, right?
Yeah, I think that's what like 100 New Friends in Jubilee is about. That's the company I'm working with. Is we're just trying to find common ground between humans, and I think like at the end of the day, humans have a lot more common ground than we're led to believe. So.
Right. Let's take a look. Here's another clip. You trying to find common ground with more humans.
I am a liberal, and I'm trying to make friends at a Trump rally to see if there's more common ground than I thought.
You want to be friends?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm Sam. What's your name?
I'm Todd.
Can you tell me about your shirt?
We're non-binary.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that we are very much against what our current socialist president is doing. We have a tremendous racial problem. We don't have to be part of that. We're not a part of that. We support people of all races, and so anybody that says that Republicans are racist are absolutely incorrect.
So Samuel, after you made these videos, have you told your friends, hey, you know, I went to this Trump rally and people were friendly, and what has their reaction been?
I mean, well, when I was going over, they're like, you're going to like Memphis, one of like the homicide capitals of the world. And of the country, and like there's a lot of gun violence over there, and then you're going to a Trump rally on top of that. It seemed fairly scary, and I think that's honestly what I wanted to test. Like, can I go into what I thought was the most hostile environment I could? But when I went, I told them like it was actually fairly friendly, and I think again, like it's just about starting those conversations.
Right.
If you can start those conversations, you can actually understand where that common ground is, where it starts, and maybe where it ends. And even where it ends, you can discuss with each other, like, hey, like, let's find that common ground.
But you've got.
All right, and with that, we'll cut off from that. But I mean, again, it's the point. I mean, if the right wing, if the MAGA, if the Trump supporters wanted to go have an echo chamber, there's Gab, there's Truth Social, there's Minds, there's all that kind of stuff out there for that. But you know, they continue to go to Twitter. They want to have the common ground, have the conversation, reach across the aisle, even with a combative opposition now wants to see them silenced and removed from such platforms because they don't want to have the conversation. They don't want to have any of that. They want to stay in their echo chamber and have their biases confirmed. We saw this with the Elon takeover. Oh, Elon's possibly going to take over Twitter, and it's going to evolve into a mega hellhole. And don't worry, we can go down to Mastodon and just be in our echo chamber again. But you know what? A lot of the Trump people, if all the opposition went out to Mastodon, would probably go in and try to get to Mastodon so they could continue to have the conversation. So, with that, also thank you for the follow, Eurovix. We're going to head out of here for the day. Let's get the outro music up here and let's go. Where's my outro music? There it is. So, thanks everybody who came by, chatted, and hung out in the live chat here. We'll be back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines, and more talk of what's going on in the world for the morning. So, come back and join us here, 7:30 Central Time every morning. Although I've been a little bit late for the last week because a little bit of overtime going on with that. But definitely come back here. Definitely join us. We're always here ready for news headlines, talking about some of the things that are going on in the world, both politically and non-politically, especially economically, because I think that is going to be, as much as they're trying to make the next election, the midterm, about politics, I think the biggest driver is going to be economics. As much as they try to keep the orange man up on the front and center, up on the center stage, people are looking at their wallets, they're looking at that gallon of milk, that gallon of gas, and saying, man, can I really endure 2 more years of policies like this? But we will see. November is right around the corner, so we're definitely looking forward to that. We're looking forward to seeing what's happening with that, and we are looking forward to coming back to you to give you more news, more commentary, more headlines, and more thoughts of how this affects the common man, rather than trying to get those thoughts from somebody who wears a suit that costs more than your house. Definitely looking forward to that. See you guys here in the morning for more Contemporary. Stick around for the raid if you're over on the Twitch side, and we will see you next time we're here on Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.